continuity is so important to solving these problems, and yet I look at all your CVs every time, particularly the permanent secretaries. You all move around, you hop around like jack-in-the-boxes. None of you stay in your departments for more than 5. How can you possibly all get your minds around solving the outcome of this bad decision-making if you're not there for more than 5 minutes? It's government's fault. You're trying to clear it up. I personally don't think the civil service should be anywhere near trying to clear it up. I think it's a government error. You're a function of government. It needs an independent body, to other questioners' point, to actually oversee this. And we need some continuity from the permanent secretaries.
Stay with me, because the full video I'm about to show you puts everything into a new perspective. There's a very specific type of politician that Whitehall absolutely dreads. Not the loud ones, not the ones who grandstand for the cameras and ask questions they already know the answer to purely for the clip. No, the ones that keep civil servants up at night are the quiet ones. The ones who arrive at a select committee having actually done their homework. The ones who've read the briefing notes, studied the figures, and this is the part that really makes a permanent secretary's eye twitch, looked at your CV. Rupert Lowe is that politician, and what happened in this committee room is exactly why the civil service should be very, very nervous every single time he walks through the door. Real quick, before we roll the footage, if you're enjoying this content, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button and smash subscribe. Over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing. Don't be one of them. It's free for you, and it helps us out more than you know. Already clicked? You're awesome. Let's get into the video.
Happy? Rupert, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I just ask you all. The other thing that strikes me is, continuity is so important to solving these problems, and yet I look at all your CVs every time, particularly the permanent secretaries. You all move around, you hop around like jack-in-the-boxes. None of you stay in your departments for more than 5 minutes, and I think both you, Gareth, and you, Jeremy, you move around so much that how can you possibly all get your minds around solving the outcome of this bad decision-making if you're not there for more than 5 minutes? So I just like to know that you're not going to consign what we're discussing here to the bottom drawer for another year before you come back here, because I think you've got some massive compensation still rattling down the track. and Chairman, I think we have a duty to the public, and particularly to the taxpayer, to make sure that we actually do this time put something in place. And, as I say, it's government's fault. You're trying to clear it up. I personally don't think the civil service should be anywhere near trying to clear it up. I think it's a government error. You're a function of government. It needs an independent body, to other questioners' point, to actually oversee this. And we need some continuity from the permanent secretaries. We don't want them moving around all the time. I think that's a terribly bad situation within the civil service. So I'd like you to tell me that you think we can get the next major compensation schemes right.
So if I may start, and there's a lot obviously in what you've just said. So if I perhaps start with your final question there, the whole point of this process is to make sure that we learn lessons. And we are determined to do so. Your point about we're here to serve justice, we're here to provide reconciliation for thousands of victims who have suffered, that is a core part of what public servants do, and we take it very, very seriously. So there's plenty that I recognise there, but if there's any assurance I can give to this committee is we are determined to learn those lessons, and we will be ready for any further compensation schemes that the government decides to discharge.
Thank you. I don't think I can say any more to that, Geoffrey.
I want to come back on this point.
Now, before we get into the substance of what was said, let's just take a moment to appreciate the scene. A parliamentary select committee, civil servant seated across from MPs, in that particular way civil servants sit, composed, carefully neutral, radiating the quiet confidence of people who have survived many governments and expect to survive many more. And then Rupert Lowe starts talking, and within about 30 seconds it becomes abundantly clear that this is not going to be one of those polite exchanges where everyone nods thoughtfully and nothing changes, because Lowe has come prepared. He has looked at their CVs. He has done what, frankly, far too few MPs bother to do. He has turned up knowing exactly who he is talking to and exactly what their track record looks like. And what he found in those CVs is the foundation of everything he is about to say. The argument he makes is deceptively simple, but genuinely devastating. Continuity. That is the word at the center of everything. When you are trying to solve complex, systemic problems, the kind of problems that involve massive compensation schemes, thousands of victims, and decades of institutional failure, continuity matters enormously. You need people who understand the history, who know the detail, who have lived with the complexity long enough to actually navigate it. And what Lowe has clocked by looking at the CVs of the permanent secretaries sitting in front of him is that continuity is precisely what the civil service does not provide. They move around, he says. They hop around like jack-in-the-boxes. None of them stay in their departments for more than 5 minutes. Gareth, Jeremy. The names are delivered with the specific kind of familiarity that signals he has done his reading, and the observation that follows is pointed. How can you possibly get your mind around solving the outcome of bad decision-making if you are never in one place long enough to understand the problem properly? It is a question that sounds almost conversational. It is not conversational. It is a carefully constructed challenge to a structural feature of the civil service that has been quietly responsible for an enormous amount of institutional failure over many years. The problem with permanent secretaries who are not particularly permanent is not just one of personal accountability. It is that when things go wrong, and in government things go wrong with considerable regularity, the people who made the decisions have already moved on. They are now running a different department, solving a different problem, building a different set of relationships, and the mess they left behind gets handed to someone new, who had no part in creating it, and who themselves will be moving on before they've had time to fix it. Rinse, repeat for decades, while the victims of those decisions wait.
And it is the victims that Lowe circles back to, because this is not abstract. This is not a dry debate about civil service HR policy. This is about compensation schemes. This is about people who were failed by government decisions and who are still, years later, waiting for something that resembles justice. He makes the point directly. There is still massive compensation rattling down the track, and there is a duty to the public and to the taxpayer to make sure that this time something is actually put in place, not filed away, not deferred, not added to the pile of things that will be reviewed at some unspecified future date by someone who wasn't there when it happened, done properly. And then he lands the part that is arguably the most significant thing said in the entire exchange. He does not think the civil service should be anywhere near trying to clear this up. The government made the error. The civil service is a function of government. Therefore, he argues, it needs an independent body, genuinely independent, to oversee the resolution, because you cannot credibly ask the institution that contributed to a problem to be the primary mechanism for fixing it. That is not accountability. That is the appearance of accountability. And Rupert Lowe, to his considerable credit, knows the difference. The response from the civil servants is measured and not without substance. They acknowledge the points, they commit to learning lessons. They say with evident sincerity that they are there to serve justice, to provide reconciliation for thousands of victims, and that they take that responsibility seriously. And perhaps they mean every word of it. But here is the thing about commitments made in committee rooms. They are only as meaningful as the structures that enforce them. A promise to do better, delivered by someone who may be running a different department in 18 months, is not the same thing as a system designed to ensure continuity, accountability, and follow-through regardless of who happens to be sitting in which chair at any given moment. That is what Rupert Lowe is really asking for, not a reassurance, a structure, not a commitment from individuals who may not be there to honour it, a mechanism that does not depend on the good intentions of whoever happens to be in post. It is the difference between trusting people and building systems that work regardless of who the people are. And it is a distinction that the victims of these compensation failures understand better than anyone, because they have been on the receiving end of what happens when good intentions are not backed by good systems. So, here is the question I want you to answer in the comments. Do you think the civil service can actually reform itself from the inside, or does it genuinely need an independent body to hold it accountable? Because Rupert Lowe thinks he knows the answer, and based on what we just watched, it is very difficult to argue with him.